Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is James Ramos from At the Quarter Pole, and this is nothing but a short story of and paying an homage to the great characters of the racetrack, though it be it the handicappers, racing fans, the track attendants, the whole shebang between the trainers and owners, and what I thought was a beautiful time growing up in the '80s in Southern California. Going to Santa Anita was one of the best things I could ever thought imaginable for being a young boy, and always had my heart's content wanting to be a jockey. I just didn't have any of the contacts to help me succeed in that field. But I've been very blessed. I've been to the racetrack and many times going with my father, ditching school and eating rolled up bean burritos and going to the trackside early in the morning to see the railbirds taking their time watches and look at the horses train at the track. Yeah, a very old time and a very beautiful time at once. At the track would on a Wednesday would get up to 26,000 patrons. A lot of the characters that are around the track be not known by their first God-given name, but always character names. The Mr. and Mrs. Penguin, Sally from the Alleys, Sammy Sordo, the philosopher, the all these characters. The Jingler. They would all go from Los Angeles, California on the bus and get ready to have a full days of action at the track. It was just a bit better time back then and just a lot of action, a lot of just wild people that you always get a kick out of them. If you didn't have a good day at the track, at least you had a good day meeting some friends, sharing a beer or going through the racing program. And I remember sitting, being all over Santa Anita Park, from the infield to the wine shed to sitting on the third floor grandstand by section RST. Normally those three sections right before the quarter pole, normally by about the 1/8 pole, and sitting there with my father, Lee James Ramos, handicapping the racing firm, and I would go through his program when I had a chance, and also the Pasadena Star News, and just going over the horses. And when I get a chance, when my father would go make a bet, I would get a chance to get into his racing form and see what I would handicap. It was just a different time back then, and just being around the San Gabriel Mountains, how beautiful it is, and getting a cup of coffee and a donut early in the morning, and just having those burritos later in the afternoon during the racing day, seeing all kinds of people like Charles Whittingham, Warren Ratelli, A.J. Doyle, so excuse me, A.T. Doyle and Jack Van Burr, Bobby Frankel, going through and talking to the riders in the saddling ring and being there and watching all this around, plus all the great races throughout the whole year. My favorite spot was always Santa Anita during the winter meet. That was, as they stated, the great race place. And I'm just paying an homage to the great time of the characters and handicappers and just a whimsical story. People put together a couple of bucks together to make a bet on a long shot, or just like I said, taking a drink from another guy's cup of, or I should say, cup of beer. And then back in the old days, they didn't have a lot of ventilation there, and people would light up like a Christmas tree, be like a chimney with all the smoking in the old days. And there'd be people watching the closed circuit TV, watching the horses, you know. One character of the race, actually, her name was Mrs. Mojo, and she'd be watching with horses and getting a kick out of them, rolling those mojo bones to see what number she pick or she would like. I remember one time a friend of my father named Tony, he met my father this one day he came to the track. He had a live long shot. Horse was called Tough Angelure. He was running out of the first race at Santa Anita with Oscar Gomez being the rider, and he was off at 99-1. So Tony, my father's friend, would go say, well, hey, Jim, who do you like? And my old man would say, well, Teflon Jalur. And Tony would look at the book and he'd look at the odds board and he would say 99-1. He says, you're dreaming, Jim. And says, okay. My old man would say, well, I'll buy you a beer every race. So as the race went off, Teflon Jalur went wire to wire and paid $219, and that is a true story. So my old man bought Tony beer all through the round. It was just a different time. Horses were excellent. I got to see many great horses throughout the years being at Santa Anita Park, like Royal Heroine, the John Henry, the Bart, Spectacular Bit, Flying Paster, Bates Motel, Farm Away, just a list of great horses, Affirmed, and the great places and people. The trainers would go and talk over to the jockeys who would be, get to see the great Willie Shoemaker, Chris McCarron in his prime, Eddie Delahousie, Pat Valenzuela, Frank Oliveras, Rudy Campas, aka known as Butterball. He was more round and straight up as a jockey, but he rode fairly well. Jorge Tejera, the Rafael Meza, just a time, it was a wonderful time. And to take issues, the characters were all very funny. Everybody maybe somewhat poor at the time, always dressed in the nines when they went to the track. It's not what it is today, where people come in shorts or they come as is. It was a little bit more, a little bit more serious, I would say. Yeah. There was two characters I misses was Mr. and Mrs. Penguin. They would dress up to the nines, going to the track, and they would color code their program. I still have a habit of color coding my racing form and jot down the notes. I don't really color code my program, but the race form I do. Make dictations and notes on a separate notebook and saying what I like. And I learned these from the past characters from the horse racing world back in the old days. And as it was put, like Damon Runyon, it says there were all a lot of lemon drop kids back in the old days, and just everybody had a certain philosophy for how they play. Some handicappers would like betting horses by their colors. It says bet a gray on a rainy day, or they like to certain two horses. One of the movie that comes close of real life horse racing, what I went through, was Hot to Trot with Richard Dreyfuss. That movie was pretty much what happened at the racetrack. The characters, the horse looked like he was sore, they wouldn't play him, or if he had a certain wink of his eye, they wouldn't play him. This is true, besides the handicapping aspect. A lot of people would say, well, he doesn't look like he's fit today. And I mean, his eyes looking cross-eyed, and it was just a weird and wonderful time. The times being there also in the cold days, be very cold in the winter meet at San Anita, like in late January or early February, and being bundled up there with two of my jackets and with my pops or my mother, and we'd be making bets all day with a sloppy track. And now the tracks come out wet and sloppy. They almost take out half the field. But now in today's horse racing venture, now and in the old days, they would have a 12, 13 horse field. They would all run at that race. They would hardly have anybody scratched out. And the time of growing up, also listening to track announcers, starting with Alan Bookdahl and then Dave Johnson, and the closer went to Trevor Denman, and always hearing the track news. There'll be the PA system go over the soundtrack over San Anita Park, saying, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a late scratch in the fifth race. X, Y, and Z will be out, and make your notes on the program. He's taking in the pen, scratching them out. Now, is it going to change the complexion of the race? Or was it the speed, and you have to change it to see if the race condition is going to be different now. They went from a sealed track to a muddy track to a fast track. And these are the wonderful times. And just learning through what I went through in my life, it was a grand time at being at the race side. And like I said, this was a short story and paying an homage to some of the great people around the racetrack, though it be gamblers, concession workers, trainers, owners, or the jockeys, but the main star of the horse racing industry is always will be the horses. I mean, the great horses, I just can't name them all. I mean, back then, growing up, all the top horses was trained by D. Wayne Lucas. For Eugene Klein, Bill and French, or also R.D. Hubbard. He had many top horses for all three of the clienteles, and William Young. Let me not forget him. And the stars were the horses, and he brought a lot of players from my life. And like I said, this is an homage to great racing folks around the backside and all the railbirds. God bless him, and hope you enjoyed the show story that I had to tell today. This is James Ramos from At the Quarter Pole. We're winning in history. Run neck and neck. Have a good morning.